Today we are taking this common nail and turning it into this badass little sword that not only is cute as hell, but it also cuts. Stay tuned. Greetings adventurers and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So in my journeys to find some fun, like small metal crafting projects to get us into kind of the mode of working with metal, I found a bunch of like small projects, like making a leaf or something. Most of which you need like a forge to do. And I want there to be more entry-level stuff where if you don't have a forge, you can want to make a forge, which by the way, if you want to make a forge, check out this video here, we've made forges. Anyways, for this project, you don't need any of that. You can technically do it with just kind of a hand torch and some files. So yeah. So without much further ado, let's just jump into it and level up this skill. Okay, so the main material we're gonna be making this tiny little sword out of is gonna be just this common nail here. Literally what it's called, common nail. What makes them common? I guess it's just the nail that is commonly used. I don't know, I didn't name them. Anyways, I started by banging this thing with my hammer just across my little tiny anvil I have here. The hope was that the metal would be soft enough that I can kind of flatten it out without heating it up in the first place. And though I think I could have, I didn't want to. The more I kind of worked at it, the more it was like, this is more difficult than I think it needs to be. We can anneal metal, right? If you're new to working with metal, annealing metal is just heating it up to the point where it kind of glows red hot, which is actually gonna soften the metal. This just makes it a lot easier to work with so that when we're banging it on our anvil here, it's actually flattening out nice and evenly and we're not fighting against it. Now, hot tip, no pun intended, I guess, but if you don't have an anvil, any kind of hard metal plate will do. I think the first anvil I had was actually just literally a steel block I got from the dump. Just saying, if you want to do something like this, you don't need to go out and buy an expensive anvil or something. Just any kind of solid metal kind of weighty thing will do. Now, once I got that nail flattened mostly to the end here, I just cut off the head of the nail. Honestly, I should have done that earlier on, but this is the first time I'm doing this process, so we're all learning together. Anywho, with that off, I just continue to hammer the piece, getting it nice and flat. Though, a couple things to keep in mind. I'm not making it like as flat as I can get it. One, that would make the metal very brittle. And two, I want this to be like a strong little sword, right? And if you were to look at a sword, hold on, we have sword. Wow. This sword is one made for us by our friends over at Firebrand, but if you look at a sword, right, you've got a good kind of hunk of metal towards the middle, and then it tapers off into the actual blade itself. Now, some might have a fuller, like an indentation in the middle to save on weight, but it'll always kind of come back to a thicker metal before tapering off to be the blade. Basically, if this thing was just kind of paper thin, it wouldn't have any real structure to it, right? It would bend the first time anything hit it, or break depending on how brittle it is. All that to say is I'm just hammering it down so that it's a good little flat-ish chunk of steel with still some body to it. Maybe just under like an 1/8 inch thick, maybe like a 32nd, something like that, yeah. Also, although it's annealed, while I'm banging on it, something happens to metal called work-hardening, which is the more you're working the metal and banging on it, the more it starts to harden again where you're banging it. The annealing and the hardening is all due to like the crystalline structures within the metal. We don't have to get into it. All you have to know is that occasionally you may have to reheat it again in order to anneal it again so that it's soft to work with. Happy with the flatness of it, I just kind of turned it on its side and lightly tapped it so I can get it as straight as possible. And look at this, I got this cute little flat hunk of steel now. Kind of already roughly sword shaped. Actually, the shape of a nail really lends itself. It already has a little tip. It's working out nicely. But those sides aren't perfectly straight, so I just run it along a file to get out any of the waves and stuff that's sticking out of the edges there. All right, so now that we have the blank that we're gonna be working with basically, it's time to actually start shaping this thing a little bit more towards what its final form will be. Starting with the tang, which is actually like the piece of the blade that actually goes into the handle. Though I did want it to be proportionate to like a real sword, so I looked it up and apparently the size of the handle is roughly 1/5 of the entire length. So since this is 100 millimeters, I just made a dot at 20, which is 1/5 of that 100. Then just using the tip of my finger as a guide, I used a Sharpie to roughly mark it out evenly on either side. With that marked out, it was off to ye olde grinder to remove any of that excess material. If you don't have a grinder, you can absolutely just do this with a hand file. Most of this can be done with a hand file actually. Since it's annealed, the metal is relatively soft and it really wouldn't have taken me that long to do it with my file, but I have a grinder, so I'm gonna use the grinder. All right, now that I have that nice and thin, I kind of want to get the blade geometry figured out. So basically, I'm just gonna have it like a diamond-shaped wedge, right? Where the middle is up higher and then it tapers off towards the ends. But to make that, I have to mark out exactly where the center is. So I just use my wing dividers here, running it along the edge and making a mark right in the center of that blade. Or what will be the blade, my little tiny hunk of steel. Then I also went in with my Sharpie just to make kind of fun designs. I thought like a little fantasy flared design would look really neat. In my head, I'm picturing some like little mouse warrior with this, and I want it to be like an epic, other mice see it and go, oh my God. I mean, obviously, other mouse with a sword in general will probably be pretty cool for them, but like, oh my God. For those fun shape details, I just used my Dremel to kind of take out any of that material that I didn't need. And now you can kind of see the design that I'm going for here. With that, it was off to my grinder to really start kind of tapering that blade down towards the edges. I'm basically holding it at an angle so that the least amount of pressure is kind of hitting towards the middle and the most is going towards the edges. By doing this all around the sword, I'm able to really kind of cleanly make that taper. But the grinder is big. Honestly, I probably should have just used a file for this because it was removing uneven amounts. So I had to go back in with my Dremel and just clean up any of the waviness that made. But after hitting it with my grinding wheel and then again with my sanding wheels to kind of clean it up, look at that. That is looking like a little sword. Quick aside, it's not like it's a big sword that I'm making or anything, it's literally this big, but for some reason, oh, it's so satisfying. I highly recommend doing a silly little project like this. It's awesome. And then after hitting it with a little bit of steel wool, like look at how shiny that is. Oh, it's so cool. Oh, just as an FYI, today's episode is brought to you by me, us. We, really mostly my beautiful Patreon members who like make any of this possible, and now recently my new YouTube members. I just came back from a trip to find that like we already have 3 YouTube members, and that's amazing to me. That's so much fun. We'll be shouting some of them out at the end of this video, but yeah, if you want to support us in any of these ways and kind of keep us going here, definitely check out our Patreon or our YouTube memberships, and that helps out a lot. Link in the description below, at least to the Patreon. I think the YouTube membership's probably just underneath this video. I don't know, you tell me, I'm really new to this. Okay, shameless plug over, back to it. It was at this point that I was like, you know what? It's so neat looking. I want it to work. I want it to be a thing that can actually like cut, right? Maybe like a fun little letter opener or something. But that does mean I want to harden the blade again, because if I keep it soft like that, it's gonna be really hard for it to get a sharp enough edge to cut anything. So I just hit it with the torch again until it was nice and hot, and then quickly dunked it in some water. By quenching the blade like this, I've actually made it very strong. It's gonna be very hard so it can hold an edge, but it will also make it brittle. But that's fine, because I'm not engaging in glorious combat with it. It's a tiny little thing. It's a tiny little guy. I'm not gonna use it that way. At this point, we have a cute little hardened blade, but now let's start to make it look really fancy, right? I wanna add a little hand guard, a handle, a little pommel to it. So for the actual guard itself, I actually found this brass washer here. It's kind of a washer, it's got threads inside of it. I'm actually not sure what it does. If a plumber out there is watching, you should let me know what this thing is. Don't know why I have it, but it's around. Anywho, for my purposes, I just cut this thing directly in half, leaving me with this little half circle that could already kind of pull off being a guard. But I want to shape it a little bit more, and also it's very thin. I'm worried if I drill through it as it is to accept the tang of the blade, that I'm gonna break it or I'm gonna break through it, and I don't trust that I'll drill perfectly straight. So I want to find a way to thicken that up a little bit and also shape the thing. So again, I'm gonna run this through the torch here, just to anneal it and make it a little easier to work with. Then I just saddled it around the tip of my anvil and began tapping away, kind of widening that half circle out a little bit, while also flattening that middle section. By kind of pushing in that middle section, I'm displacing the metal, right? So it's gonna widen out a little bit, giving me more room to be able to drill into. Which, as you can see, gives me this little wing nut shape here, which, now that I say it out loud, I could have just bought a wing nut, right? Like, if I bought a little wing nut and maybe heated it up and pounded it so that the opening in the wing nut closed, that probably would have been a lot easier. Use a wing nut. Let me know how it works out. I think that'll be better. Anywho, I did not have a wing nut, so I added just a little bit of oil and then drilled straight through this thing as straight as I could, right in the center of that flattened out area. Then just used my Dremel to thin out the ends a little bit and smooth off that transition from the center. just so it's not so big and chunky for my warrior mouse's little hands. And as you can see, it slides perfectly into place. I'm not gonna lie, like where the very bottom of the blade transitions into the tang, I thought I'd have to file out a little bit so it fit more snugly, but nah, this thing perfectly sits right in there. It's like it's meant to be. But okay, now that we have that in place, it's time to actually like make the handle. We don't want to just be holding on to the tang. We want a good wooden handle of some sort. To do that, I just kind of roughly put a hole into this dowel here and then cut a chunk off, roughly the size of the handle, so that I can put it into place. It doesn't actually have to be perfectly centered on the tang because I'm gonna basically use the sword as a handle and turn it in circles on my sander, which should give me a pretty perfect kind of cylinder around the center that is my sword. Once that was good, I actually just used some mahogany leather dye to dye the handle. And you're gonna notice there's a little bit of the tang hanging out of the end there. That's just so we can add a little decorative pommel to the end and it has something to adhere to. Now for my decorative pommel, I actually end up having this little like leather rivet that has a tiny red jewel on it. But it's perfect because the body of it is brass, which kind of fits in with the other accents we have on the sword, and it has that cool little red gem on it. So in order to make that work, I just nipped the end of it and then used the end of some pliers to widen it back open again because it kind of closed itself when I cut it. Then it was a simple matter of just dabbing in some super glue and setting it onto the top. Finally, with everything together, I hit my whetstone and tried to hone this down into a cutting blade as best as I could. And look at this. Oh my God, it's razor sharp. I love this so much. Look at how cool it is. It's such a badass little sword. I am genuinely, probably more than I should be, super proud of this little thing. It only took me a session to make, maybe like 4 or 5 hours worth of work, and it is so cool. Now I want to make like a little stand, like maybe a tiny stone that I can put it into, so it's a sword in the stone kind of action. I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want to put my fingerprints all over the blade, and also, again, it is very sharp. I made a very, very sharp little guy. But now I just need to find a little mouse warrior who's worthy of this blade. Though, probably not. I don't want him to cut himself. It's really cool though, right? But although fun and kind of frivolous, you actually can learn a lot from just playing around with materials like this. From this, you're gonna learn how to like anneal metal, how to work with it, when it starts to work harden, the difference in sound as you're hitting it starts to work harden. Then the difference between working like something the hardness of steel versus the brass here. They were totally different in feel and how I was working with them. And you know, if I went as aggressively as I went with the steel, I'd remove too much material from the brass. And then just the general creativity of looking what you have around. I have a nail, I have this little brass washer thing, like let's make something cool out of it, right? It's a project that does not cost a lot to do, it teaches you some fun skills, and honestly, it's just really cool. I really love it. But tell me what you think about projects like this. Do you have any small fun projects that you think will teach you a whole lot of stuff, but like, it's just super cool, it's just super fun? I'd love to know what your small fun projects are. Definitely leave in the comments below. Now, if you like this project or just generally the vibe of this video, why don't you give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. In the meantime though, keep leveling up, you. You've made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that, and it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do any of this without them. Huge shout out to our newest high tier Patreon member, Bonzer Melon. Fantastic name. Also a shout out to our new Primate level YouTube memberships, Firebrand Productions, and Kurzirenfro 6851. I most likely butchered that, so sorry. And finally, a massive shout out to our Grandmaster tier Patreon members, Familiar T and Froggy. As I said before, we can't do any of this without you and your support. That's what helps us grow on this channel, so thank you so much for all you do. If you'd like to support us in this way, consider joining our Patreon or the YouTube membership, link below. Otherwise, just staying this long, sharing this video, or checking out one of these videos YouTube thinks you'd like really helps out a lot too. All right, I gotta go and make more mini armory. I'm thinking like a little battle axe next. Oh, so cool.